Hello, people. Thank you to whoever it is that's listening to this episode right here. I'm going to do something entirely different. I'm hoping that some atheists are listening to this, and I hope also a lot of Christians. Basically, I hope both sides are listening to this, because the Christians will get some really good information out of this as well. I'm going to be going over basically in this episode my personal testimony. Now, this episode, everything that I'm going to be saying to you people is my personal testimony. This is what I personally went through. So I cannot prove anything that I'm going to be saying in this recording, and that's not even the purpose of this recording. This is just a testimony only. So take it either way you will. I really don't care how you atheists take this. Believe it or not, I really don't care, but this is my personal testimony of how I could not deny God if I wanted to, if my life depended on it. An atheist will say, well, why is that? Where's your evidence? Again, I can't prove anything here. This episode is to show why I personally couldn't. Because the spirit realm, the other side, the other plane of existence, however you want to word it, has been 100% proved to me, and not only 100% proved, but I experienced it personally firsthand with many witnesses within my family, including girlfriends and my own wife. So let's begin this testimony. I was a Christian at the time. This was early 1990s, and of course, as a Christian, I believed, of course, that there's hell, Satan, and his demons and all this stuff, everything that the Bible talks about. But at the same time, I really didn't buy into the thing about, haunted houses or people seeing spirits and all this stuff like that, which sounds weird because as a Christian, you would think I believe in all this stuff. It was kind of a contradiction, of the way I thought. I didn't buy that stuff, but yet as a Christian, I knew that, Satan was there, demons, I believed in all that. But I hadn't experienced it for myself. So I let this curiosity fester in my head until, unfortunately, I wanted to try to experience it for myself. And the results were disastrous, and I wish I would not have ever attempted to find out firsthand. Because in doing so, I had to leave my faith, because Christianity does not support the occult. It does not support getting into the occult whatsoever. So I did things that were extreme abominations as a Christian to do. I got involved in Ouija boards. That was my first step, and from there I learned of witchcraft. I got involved with that, spell casting, table moving, and all this stuff like that. But it started out once again with just the Ouija boards. I was just curious if I could actually witness something firsthand. I mean, not just believing from the Bible that the spirit world existed, but I wanted to actually experience it for myself. So we started playing with Ouija boards, me and my friend. Okay, and we experienced some pretty wild things. I remember one night we was using the Ouija board, and I thought, I wonder if we could just skip the Ouija board and just put our hands on the table, and ask questions. So we were asking questions, and next thing you know, there was a huge thump under the table, like somebody was under the table and rose up real quick, slammed into it, and this was a solid, heavy wooden table that my parents had. And that thing went wham, lifted up off the ground, and all my friends wanted to immediately leave. They completely freaked out. They're like, whoa, man, did you see that? I mean, they completely freaked out. And that's what really sparked my curiosity to go further. I mean, we had no explanation for that. But even when you experience something like that, your mind's still trying to make up excuses, like atheists do. No matter what they experience or no matter what the evidence, their mind wants to fight it because their mind wants to retain a particular view, and so it'll fight. So in the back of my mind, I was trying to make up excuses for, well, I don't have any explanation for it, but what if it wasn't paranormal? I need to go a little bit deeper here with this. So one night we decided to go up to my grandmother's house, and she lived just right next door to me. And they were currently in Florida, visiting my uncle at the time. My parents were home asleep, and so we thought, let's just go up to my grandmother's house, and my friends thought it was a good idea. And so we did more of the table moving thing up at my grandmother's house. She had 2 acres of land, nice back patio with one of those plastic lawn tables. And so we laid our hands on that and started asking questions and everything. Lo and behold, that whole table started moving. I freaked out. And then my friend said, well, if there's a real spirit here and you really have power, prove it. And just then, the entire table lifted up off the ground, levitated. Nobody was touching it. We all jumped back, and all of us had our jaws practically to the ground. We could not believe what we were seeing. We're all standing there. Nobody's hand is on it. And it's 3 foot off the ground, spinning around, and then it flies up against the wall. I've never seen anything like this except for in movies. I was scared to death. I mean, all kinds of thoughts were going through my mind. There was no reputation for that, no debunking that, and there were tons of witnesses. All my friends were there. Nobody was touching it. Because once it initially flew up, we all jumped back. We was at least 6 foot from it. Nobody was even near it. Nobody was touching it. It was levitating. It spun and it threw itself up against the wall. And every one of us then started getting these horrible feelings of pure evil, like something was there. And my friend's like, I think someone's inside the house, man, because I just saw something looking at me out the blinds. And even after seeing what I saw, I'm like, dude, man, there isn't anybody here. Nobody's here, man. My grandparents are in Florida. Nobody's watching the house. They're not here. You didn't see anything. Well, then at one point, I turned and I was looking at the house, and through the blinds, you see her hand move the blinds apart, and this wicked pair of eyes that I can't even describe staring at me. Now, there is a fear that is actually so intense it paralyzes you. Your legs get weak, and you can't hardly move. You can't walk or run or anything. I used to watch those movies where people would be falling all the time and think, man, how stupid, Somebody chases these people in these movies like Friday the 13th or whatever, and all of a sudden they can't run. They're falling down all the time. And I used to laugh, but when you're paralyzed with fear to a certain point, it's so intense, you literally can't hardly move, and your legs are weak. That's how terrified I was. I couldn't even walk or run. I never experienced fear like this. I seen this, my friends seen this, and there was nobody home. But yet something peered those blinds apart and looked at us. Now I put this out of my mind for a little while. At one point, my grandmother got home, and here's where it gets weird. Another thing, totally unexplained. Totally unexplained. No debunking this, what I'm about to say also. My grandmother got home, and I went up to her house, and I'm like, "You're here a week early. Weren't you supposed to stay another week?" And she said, "I need to talk to you." Now, my grandmother was a Christian too, but she was a strong Christian. She got messages from the Lord all the time about things, and she was never wrong. And she took me to the back room, and she said, "Were you up here doing anything that you were not supposed to be doing while we was gone in Florida?" Immediately I'm like, how in the world would she know this? And I told her, I'm like, well, no. I lied to her at this point. I told her the truth later on, but at this point I initially lied and said, no, I hadn't been doing anything on your property that I shouldn't be doing. I didn't hurt anything up here. And she said, well, the reason we're home early is because I got a horrible feeling that we was in Florida all of a sudden late one night. That something evil was taking place on my property. Something bad was happening. And she said, I kept pushing your grandfather to leave. I told him, we need to leave. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. I'm not going to shut up about it. I want to go back home. Something's wrong. She said he flipped out. He got all pissed off and everything, but I would not give up. I was determined. I had to get back to the house. I knew something was wrong. Now, people listening to this, how in the world is she going to know this from Florida? Impossible. That is, by natural means. She knew something was wrong, she knew it was evil, and she knew that the evil was taking place on her property. And she got a bad feeling the exact, later on when we discuss this further, she got that bad feeling on the exact night that I was up there doing those things. And she came running back. She told me that when she first got back home, she said it was really funny. She said every cross and every picture of Jesus was laying on the floor. She said I picked everything up and I put it back on the walls. And she said all of a sudden I would hear something. And then I walk out of my room and she goes, the pictures and the crosses were back on the floor. And she said only the Christian items were on the floor. Only the pictures of the Lord, only the crosses. Everything else hanging up all over the walls were fine. And she said also when I first come back home, first thing I did was try to use the bathroom. She said the second we walked in from our long trip, she said I went to my room, I looked in the toilet stool, and she said the water was pitch black. She said pitch black, blacker than oil. She said I can't even describe the blackness. And she said I had a horrible feeling of pure evil. I knew something was in my house. She said you had to have done something up here. She kept pushing and pushing. So like I said, eventually I told her what I had done. Oh boy, was she furious. Well, time went on, not too much. I think it wasn't even a week later. I went up there to visit her one night. Because again, she just lived right next door to me. And she was telling me some experiences that she's been having. She said, dang you, why in the world did you have to come up here to my house while we was gone on vacation in Florida and do occult activity on my property. She said, whatever you did, it gave the legal right for these spirits to enter this house. She goes, you brought demons into my house. You wouldn't believe what's been going on at night. She said that her bed was shaking. In the morning when she would wake up, she would hear all kinds of voices. Like, she said it sounded like a whole bunch of people was outside in the living room just talking away, like there was a huge tea party going on, just talking and carrying on, and things banging and clanging in the kitchen. And she goes, but yet when you would get up and I'd open up my bedroom door and step out to the other part of the house, she said it would all quit. Complete silence. Didn't hear anything. Nothing was out of place. And she said, I had never experienced any of this before. None of it. She said, I was going through none of this until you did what you did. And the second I came back from Florida, this stuff started in immediately. My grandmother was in her 80s, so I was trying to, discard some of it as well. Maybe it's just in her mind. Still trying to rationalize. after I experienced everything that I had, I'm still trying to rationalize. This is how much I did not want to believe it, people. And I was a Christian. So I perfectly understand, for any atheist listening to this, why is it so hard for you? Because as a believer in God, a believer in hell, Satan, demons, the whole 9 yards, I was even trying to rationalize it. But yet I couldn't. There was no debunking this. What I experienced. But yet I was still trying to debunk what she was saying. Why all of a sudden would an 80-year-old woman lose her mind all of a sudden when she come back from Florida and was starting to experience all these things? All of a sudden, that didn't make sense to me. And why only after I started doing the occult stuff, would she all of a sudden lose her mind and start hallucinating and hearing things that aren't really there? No, that didn't make sense. The evidence in my mind was stacking up. She only started giving me reports of all this stuff happening only after I did the occult activity. Then immediately all this stuff she's telling me about started taking place. So the evidence wasn't weighing in favor of her just being old and, senile, whatever, and just, hallucinating. But even so, I was still trying to go that route, even though the evidence really didn't point in that direction. But again, I was still doing it. Well, she's old, maybe it's just in her mind, blah, blah, blah. So, to make her feel better, I decided, well, you know what? Let me, stay up here, a few days with you, and see, if I can experience anything. At this time, I was just starting to get into the show Ghost Hunters on TV. I had just discovered it, watched a few episodes, and they started talking about getting spirit voices on a recorder, on a digital recorder, which they call EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. It's where a spirit imprints a voice on a recorder. You won't hear anything at the time of the recording. It'll be dead silence. You can hear a pin drop. But you play the recording back and you'll get the voice telling you something. A voice that naturally shouldn't be there. So after watching a few episodes and seeing what they were doing with the voice recorder, the EVPs that they were capturing, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can validate some things that my grandmother is talking about. She's hearing all these voices, and if indeed a spirit or demon is in her house, or demons, because they never come just one, they always go in packs. I'm going to try to see if I can capture something. And I want to make sure that the evidence is not contaminated. So I want to be there when the recording is actually running. So what I did is I went to my grandmother's room early one morning. She was sound asleep. You could hear a pin drop. Now, to set this up for you, we didn't live in the city. We lived out in the country. There was nobody else around, not a house anywhere near us. So there was no noise contamination, because I know atheists like to make excuses. Well, it could have been this. Well, it could have been that. Well, it could have been this. Well, it could have been that. Somebody outside might have been hollering. Somebody outside might have been talking, and you didn't know, and blah, 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 blah. Their mind goes nuts because they don't want to believe something that contradicts their worldview. No, there was none of that. No contamination whatsoever. There was nobody remotely near this house, except for our house. We lived right next to her. Well, not really right on top of her, but, we didn't live too far. But there was nobody else around us for at least about, I think it was around 3 miles or so, I'm thinking. It's been a long time ago, so I'd say about 3 miles from us. There was us, me and my parents, and then my grandmother that lived, probably like your average block maybe. Wasn't too far. So that's all that was in this area. Okay, so I go in her house. I mean, damn it, I was already there. Excuse me. I went into her room that morning. Now, I couldn't find a digital recorder, but I did have one of those old-fashioned. It was a microcassette recorder, and I had bought a package of brand new tapes because I didn't want no contamination with those either. I wanted to make sure, to be sure. So I took a brand new tape out of the package, put it in the microcassette recorder. I went to her room. She was asleep, like I said. I sat down on the floor. I put the recorder up on there was a nightstand there across from the bed, or a dresser, I mean. So I put it on top of the dresser. I sat down on the floor, and I waited. Now, the tape was only a half hour in length, so I knew I wasn't going to be sitting there on the floor waiting too long. But anyways, I sat there real quietly, never said a word, and just waited. And the entire 30 minutes, you could hear a pin drop if one dropped it. Not a peep, not a sound, nothing. Then the micro recorder went off after a half hour. I rewound it. I'm sitting there listening, and the recording is almost done. All of a sudden, this voice, not her voice, not mine, it was a man's voice, but it was like a voice that had undergone altering, like with the computer or something. It was absolutely evil and demonic sounding. It actually sent chills down my spine, but it was loud, like somebody was right in front of the recorder and yelled directly into the mic. That's how loud and close up it was. I mean, directly into the mic, like you would put your lips practically touching the microphone. That's how loud and clear this was. And the voice said, "Hi, how in the hell are you this morning?" And immediately after that, there was 2 loud poundings. And you could tell it was right next to the recorder. It sounded like somebody was taking their fist and they pounded right next to the recorder on the dresser 2 times and went, I mean, real loud. And you could tell, when you're playing something back, if somebody's fist were to slam down hard directly on the surface where the recorder was laying. It said, "Hi, how in the hell are you this morning?" Boom! Boom! I mean, it was freaking loud, people. I mean, I can't even tell you how loud this was. The top of the dresser ought to have been cracked. That's how loud it was. And the whole time I'm sitting there, and you could hear a pin drop. There was nothing. And then I play it back, and here's this voice on there, something that sounds straight out of the pit of hell. I mean, I can't even explain how wicked this damn thing sounded. You talk about scared shitless. I threw the darn recorder when I heard that, as I was holding it, playing it back outside, having a cigarette. I threw it. I mean, I've never been so damn shocked, so scared in all my life. I picked it back up, and I rewound it, and I listened to it again and again and again. I played it for my grandmother. I mean, people, this is not natural. There is no naturalistic way a voice is going to get on a recorder from thin air saying, "How in the hell are you this morning?" and to loud bangs right next to the recorder when there's nobody in the room. Naturally speaking, impossible. Undebunkable. I could not debunk that. That was solid evidence. So then, I immediately after that happened, went in a town, went to the nearest Catholic church that I had seen, and I got a hold of the priest there, and I told him, about our whole experience and that. He come over and blessed the house, and I went around with him and I helped him out. And after hearing that recording and explaining the situation, my parents went up to help him out too. All of us, the priest and all of us, had oil, and we went over all the windows, sealing all the windows with the cross in oil, and invoking the Lord Jesus Christ and commanding them to leave. Now, after all this was done and the priest left, on my way home that night, after I left, I had this horrible feeling. I just absolutely knew I shouldn't have done that, because I knew that I knew in my mind something was following me home. I had pissed something off and it was following me now. Well, my fears were confirmed. Something indeed followed me home. Now, I was having issues every darn night of the week. This was round the clock, folks. I'd be in a deep sleep and was woken up out of a deep sleep almost every night with something shaking my bed violently. Now, when you're woken up out of a deep sleep because something is shaking the hell out of your bed, you ain't debunking that. The wind didn't shake my bed. The wind didn't form a wind hand and grab my bed and shake the hell out of it. I woke up out of a deep sleep. I was asleep. And I woke up, and I'm trying to focus, and my bed is going all over hell, shaking and bouncing all over. You talk about fear, people? You don't know what fear is, the people that are listening to this. Yeah, try denying the spiritual world don't exist while you're laying in bed, watching your bed shaking all over hell and things punching your mattress, and you can watch the indents as your mattress is being punched all around you, and you're looking at this while it's happening. It doesn't matter how many times you say, this ain't real, it's not happening, it can't happen, it doesn't exist, it's not there, there's no God, there's no this, there's no hell, there's no devil. You can deny, pull out your hair, rant and rave, stomp up and down, get pissed off, debate someone, flip out, go nuts, wave your hands in the air, do somersaults naked on top of your pillow. You can go as nuts as you want to go nuts and deny as all you want to deny. There's no denying it when you're looking at it. Doesn't matter how many times you repeat something ain't there. If you're watching something happening, then obviously it's there. Hello? Obviously it's real if you're sitting there watching it as it's happening. That's like a car that's trying to run you down, and it's chasing you and you're running from it. The whole time you're running, this isn't real, this isn't happening, it isn't happening. You can deny it all you want, but that car's still chasing you. When you're experiencing something, there's no use in denying it while you're experiencing it. That would be a fool. So that's why, atheists, I could not deny it if I want to. Now you can because you didn't have these experiences, and that's fine. But I did. So for me to deny that there's spirit, actual conscious, intelligent spirit beings, just as self-aware and alive as we are, entities, whatever you choose to call them, for me to deny that there's another plane of existence, a spiritual plane of existence, would be like trying to deny that my heart is pumping in my chest. It would be denying that I have a left arm because I have one. It would like trying to deny the fact that I need oxygen. I can't. I'm sorry. And this went on and on and on. It even interfered with my sex life. I'd bring a girl home to have sex with. I'd sneak them in the house at night. I'd bring them home from the bars. I mean, I was really a messed up Christian. I was a bad Christian, okay? I mean, no, I'll admit it. I was in the occult. I was hanging around bars, But I'd bring these women home, and we're in the bed doing our thing. I don't think you need any explanation on that part, And right in the middle of it, boom! Something under the bed with just like a fist the size of the bed just punched up underneath the mattress. The bed would start shaking. Things were hitting the mattress. And I remember this one chick, she leaped off the bed. She got so freaking scared. She's like, what the? I won't even say the word she used because I really don't like using the F-bomb. She goes, what the blank is this? She was so terrified. I've never seen a chick so terrified. I'm sorry for laughing because it was kind of funny in a way, but at the time, it really wasn't funny also. She couldn't get her clothes on fast enough, and I followed her outside, and she's like, whoa, no, dude, no way, dude. Get away from me, man. Whatever the blank you have in this house, she said, I don't want no part of it, bro. No part of it. It was so funny. I remember her name to this day. Her name is Trinity. I met her at a Village Inn. And sorry for laughing because when I'm thinking back at it, I just never seen anybody that scared, flipping out that bad. But at the time I wasn't laughing. Okay, I wasn't laughing at the time. But man, this chick, Trinity, boy, she was something else. And there was friends and family members, that witnessed the same thing. So it wasn't just me. I wasn't, losing my mind. I was a sane person. And this happened again and again and again. Like I said, it was a daily basis. I went through this for years. And it was an absolute living hell. I didn't just drink too much at the bar and hallucinate. No, this happened regardless if I was dead, sober. I'd been drinking. It didn't matter. And there were witnesses. Friends would come over my house. We'd be sitting there playing my Nintendo together, just shooting the bull, whatnot. Things would happen. Things pounding on the wall. Things punching the bed. Things moving around the room. You name it, man. It was going on. It got to the point nobody wanted to come over to my house, especially to be in my room. So I had to start going over to other people's homes. They would not come over to my house. It interfered with my sex life. Again, like I said, I couldn't even bring a woman into my house, or with my house. I was living with my mom and dad at this time, but I couldn't bring anybody over to my room. The women didn't want to come. It was scaring them off. My friends didn't want to come over. Another thing that was happening, it was really freaking weird, is I would be laying there in bed. Not only would I be woken up, like I said earlier, when the bed would shake real hard, but I was laying in bed, and this weird thing that would happen every single night. It was talking about frustrating and weird. I'd be laying there in bed, and it would be like something living inside my mattress. Think of like you're laying in bed, and just think how it would feel if like somebody was like trapped inside your mattress and they're trying to get out, so they're moving around and you're trying to get to sleep, okay? I'm laying there trying to get to sleep anyways, and something is slithering inside my mattress, pushing up on my back, so my body would bowing upward, would bow upward. There's something pushing on my mattress like it's trying to get out, slithering through it, and you feel all these movements constant. Now, how are you going to get sleep when something like this is going on? This was continually. But finally, to shorten this recording and get this over with, because I really didn't want this recording to be as long as it already is. But fast forwarding a few years later, I finally got the demons out of there. Finally got them exorcised out. Excuse me. And I praise God that they are gone, and to this day I experienced nothing like that again. Nothing like it. Oh, and one more thing real quick. Also, one time when I was at my inside the kitchen there, I was looking out the window at my grandmother's house, and I could tell she had her bedroom light on. You can see the light. Her bedroom window faced our kitchen window. So I'm looking out the kitchen window, looking at her bedroom window across the way, lit up, and then all of a sudden I see this huge shadow. I mean, enormous. My grandmother's not that big, and neither is my grandpa. This thing was tall, but it was a human shape, and it just kept pacing back and forth and back and forth. So I'd get on the phone and I'd say, I told my grandmother when she answered, I said, hey, I just called because I was looking through the kitchen window up at your bedroom window just now, and I seen a huge shadow pacing back and forth. There's nobody in your room, is there? And she said, wait a minute, you saw what? And I said, yeah, I saw this huge shadow. It was human figure, real tall. It was going back and forth. And she said, well, I've been in here in the bed for the last hour reading my book, trying to get to sleep. I haven't got out of the bed. I said, oh boy, here we go. And then so I go to the kitchen window again, and I look up again at her bedroom window, and I didn't see the shadows this time, but then I saw like several shadow figures outside in her yard waving at me, standing there in the yard, and they're waving at me like, hey, look at us, Yeah, they wanted to see me. They wanted me to see them, And just then I heard my name called in my ear, like somebody standing right next to me. Like a person's mouth is right next to your ear, they're standing shoulder to shoulder with you, and they lean in to your ear, and they say your name loud. I fell to the floor because it scared me so darn bad. Oh, jeez. The things that I had went through, people. And like I said, I would have probably thought I was losing their mind if it wasn't for the fact that there was witnesses out the yin-yang. My parents, women I would take home, my friends, they was all terrified. None of them wanted to come back to my parents' house anymore. They all witnessed it. They all experienced it. And, like I said, I got things on a recording device. There's a lot more that I'm not telling because this would be a few hours long. Everything that you heard in this recording so far is only the tip of the iceberg of what I've seen and experienced, along with tons of witnesses within the family and friends. This is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. So in closing, if you've made it this far, thank you for having the patience to listen to almost, well, yeah, a little over 40 minutes of this. But I just wanted this to be my testimony to all the non-believers that this is why that I could not deny a spiritual plane of existence if my life depended on it. I cannot, and I will not. And so I will not deny my Lord Jesus Christ. I know there's a God. I know there's a spiritual existence. I know demons are real, which means I know atheism is a lie. And must also means I know where you atheists are going if you don't change your mind. I have dealt with these things firsthand that you're going to be meeting and spending eternity with. So good luck with that.